Welcome to the Global News Podcast on YouTube, where we go behind the headlines of a story and tell you why it really matters. I'm Uncle Design. Today, we are discussing the future of the Arctic. Well, more importantly, the future of the world's biggest island, Greenland. Now, the Trump administration is hosting the Greenlandic and the Danish foreign ministers. The US say they are looking at this region because it impacts US national security. So just why is Donald Trump so keen to acquire this territory? I'm joined by Katya Adler, our Europe editor, who's in Nuuk in Greenland to discuss all of this. Katya, thanks so much for your time. Now, you've been in Greenland for a couple of days now. You've been speaking to the locals there. We hear from diplomats, we hear from politicians, but what of the locals who live there? What have they been saying to you?
Well, they're extremely worried about the future of their island. This is the biggest island in the world, but it's largely covered by a vast ice sheet, so 80% of the island. But there are 57,000 people who live here, so an extremely small population, scattered about, the biggest concentration here in the capital Nuuk. And everyone is worried, and everybody's on the edge of their seat. It is normally an area of absolute tranquility. I mean, as I said, 80% of this island is sheet ice. It's quiet. There are no roads connecting the towns on Greenland. And, you know, the Danish military presence here is very light touch. When they patrol inland, they have to do that by dog sled because of the absence of roads. Greenlanders are not used to all of this international noise and international attention. And when I've gone around talking to people, they just want everybody, the politicians, the military, noise, us journalists, they want us all to go away. They really want to go back to living their peaceful lives here. But you know, if you say there's more complexity to this, because Greenlanders want to become independent eventually, at the moment their biggest earner is fishing. There is not enough here to live from fishing alone. They rely on very big subsidies from Denmark. So if they break away from Denmark, they most certainly are looking for international partners. And there is great interest here in working with the United States, just not being owned by the United States.
And Katya, there's a huge statement around the future of the Arctic. I mean, how do we even determine something like that? What does that even mean?
The future of the Arctic. Well, the Arctic has risen in importance in security terms since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. There are 8 countries that surround the Arctic. That includes the United States and it includes Russia as well. Generally, up until 2022, the Arctic has sort of prided itself with this mantra, high north, low tension. And in fact, if you have a look at NATO nations like Denmark and Canada, they were very, very reluctant to have a big NATO presence in the Arctic because they were worried of upping the ante, of encouraging Russia to feel more aggressive or defensive in the Arctic. Now, that did begin to change after 2022, but what NATO says is more can be done. What Donald Trump says is he needs to take this island because he says if the US doesn't take it, then China, which is becoming increasingly interested in the Arctic, or Russia will take it. He has claimed that this island is surrounded already by Russian and Chinese boats. Now, there is no evidence to back up that claim, but there are waters here which join Greenland with Iceland and the United Kingdom, and they are very important for surveillance, not just to see the movement of boats, but particularly Russian submarines as well. So the US has asked Denmark over time to step up its surveillance. Now, since Donald Trump has insisted more and more loudly that he's going to take this island, you've seen a scramble amongst NATO's European major powers, who have stood behind Denmark over the sovereignty issue here, but to come up with what they hope will be compromise solutions, saying to Donald Trump, you don't need to act unilaterally over Greenland's security here. We will all boost our presence together as NATO forces. You've had Germany and the UK taking the lead here, and you've just had a contingent of Danish forces arriving last night and today as a kind of receiving committee, more or less, is how the Danish committee, the Danish government is putting it, ready to receive more international troops and capabilities as well. But again, Donald Trump has doubled down. He said that basically this comes down to real estate. He doesn't want to lease Greenland. He says he wants to own Greenland. So, if that is the line at today's meeting in Washington, where can this meeting go? And there is a lot of concern, not just amongst Greenlanders, but amongst European leaders as well, because how would they react? They need the US on side, inside NATO and outside. They rely still, even though they've promised to increase defense spending, on Washington for their security. They're also wanting to keep Donald Trump on side when it comes to trying to find a sustainable peace plan for Ukraine. So while they want to stand with Denmark, they don't want to anger Donald Trump. So there is a lot at stake here in the island, for the islanders, and outside more broadly as well.
I like how you've broken down that geopolitical posturing, and with the background you've got behind you, just feels like something out of Game of Thrones, the way you've described it all, with all the chess playing and everything that's involved in this. And I guess there's even more to drill down in, for want of a better word, because there's the key element of rare earth minerals and a real thirst from Donald Trump and the United States in particular around these.
That's right, because, you could argue, if Donald Trump is worried about Arctic security, would he look at Greenland, or would he look closer to home? Because actually, Russia and America are almost nose to nose elsewhere in the Arctic. If you look at Alaska, for example, and that is an area, the waters are around there, the Bering Strait, that is where Russia moves in nuclear capabilities as well. So you could argue that would be an area of the Arctic that Donald Trump might be more interested in bolstering immediately than here in Greenland, where there is no evidence of these Russian and Chinese boats he claims to already be here. So is he more interested in energy security? Yes, Greenland is seen as an absolute treasure trove of natural resources, including rare earths and minerals, that not just the US president, but every single global power is hungry for right now, because they're so important in high-tech technologies, including defense capabilities as well. On both of those issues, though, if you have a look at security in Greenland, if you have a look at natural resources, there is room for negotiation at today's meeting. As I said, NATO powers say they can help deal with the security question when it comes to natural wealth here. There could be offers from Denmark and Greenland for the US to increase its investments and interests here. But if what we're talking about here is Donald Trump's interest in territorial expansion, in taking away sovereignty, in actually claiming this island for himself, that is where the possibility for negotiation runs out. And, whereas Greenland politically belongs to Denmark, belongs to Europe, geographically, it is part of North America. And Donald Trump has shown a very big interest in trying to make America greater in terms of size and in dominance. So if that is his main concern here, again, as I say, what is there to talk about in this meeting? And that brings us back to the Greenlanders, the people of this island, who say, we are not for sale, we are not for the taking. Although most want to become independent eventually from Denmark, a lot more of them, 85% according to opinion polls, do not want to become Americans.
Katya, thank you so much for your time. I don't know how to say farewell in how they say it in Greenland, but in Greenlandic, but I think it's barge. Is it barge? Something like that. But farewell. Thank you so much for your time, and stay warm.
Thank you.
Katya Adler there, our Europe editor in Greenland. If you're interested in more world stories like this, do check out our Global News podcast. You can download that from wherever you get your podcasts from. Also, do subscribe and like this episode, and of course to our BBC News YouTube channel. Thanks so much for your time. I'll speak to you soon.